Warren Buffett, 8 Mistakes Most Investors Make. Welcome to Cash Street, where cash is always king. Warren Buffett, widely regarded as the best investor in history, has been investing for a considerable amount of time. He began when he was only 11 years of age and presently he is 90, so that is 79 years of money management experience that we can gain from. He has witnessed many of the same mistakes that the typical investor makes throughout his career. I'll let him talk about 8 very important ones from which we can all learn. I was simply thinking about what's going on with everything. Could you view it as the most obviously awful venture you've made? The worst purchase I've ever made? The most serious errors are those that do not actually occur. Rather than being committed, they are errors of omission. We have never lost that much money on any one investment. But the things I knew enough about that I didn't, the things I knew enough about, have cost us as much as $10 billion in missed profits. And when you come on, the most common question we get is, what should they be buying right now? So if I say buy, you say? When I say basically the whole, I'm referring to the idea that European news or a slowdown in one thing or another or something similar is occurring. That wouldn't cause you on the off chance that you possessed a decent ranch and had it shown to a decent occupant. If you owned an apartment house and were in a good location and had a good manager, you wouldn't even sell it because someone said, here's a news item, this is happening in Greece or something similar. Even if you had a successful personal business, you wouldn't even consider selling it. When you own stocks, you own pieces of businesses, and they're wonderful businesses. And you can choose the world's best businesses. The local McDonald's franchise, you wouldn't be thinking about buying or selling every day. Also, it's crazy to buy or sell on current news when you're in a great business with people running it and know you'll do well in 5 or 10 years. It would be a terrible mistake to think that news events should force you to try to dance in and out of a wonderful game. Therefore, join a lot of wonderful businesses and remain with them. Indeed, I committed a ton of errors great to slip up. Well, not the greatest, essentially the greatest. However, purchasing Berkshire Hathaway itself was a misstep since Berkshire was a crummy material business and I bought it efficiently. Ben Graham had taught me to buy things in bulk and to look for bargains. And either he taught me this in 1949 or they left a lasting impression on me. As a result, I went around looking for what I refer to as used cigar butts on stocks. The cigar butt method of investing involves finding a clearly awful, soggy, and ugly cigar as you walk down the street looking for cigarettes. One remaining puff, but when you pick it up, you get one disgusting puff, so you throw it away even though it's free. It's cheap, but after that, you look around for another soggy puff of smoke. Well, I did that for a long time. Even though you can make money doing it, you can't make a lot of money doing it. It's much easier to buy great businesses. Therefore, I would rather purchase a wonderful company at the fair price than a wonderful company at the fair price. I flew to the United States and purchased preferred stock in 1989. I now have an 800 number that I call whenever I consider purchasing airline stock, and the company went bankrupt as soon as my check cleared. It was really stupid. I hit them up any hour that luckily I call them at 3 a.m. and I simply dial and I say my name. I'm an airaholic, you understand what mind purchasing this thing, and afterward they talk me down. Believe me when I say that it sometimes takes hours to complete, but it is well worth it. If you ever consider that airline purchasing airline stock, please call me and I will provide you with the 800 number if you do not wish to do so. We don't do a lot of things, but when we do, it's important and right. We have to do it, and it would be just as bad to do it on a smaller scale. Almost does not perform it. You would be better off if, when you got out of school, you had a punch card with 20 punches on it, and you used up a punch for every big financial decision you made. You got very rich because you thought very hard about each one. You went to a cocktail party and someone talked about a company. You didn't even understand what they did or couldn't pronounce the name of, but they made some money last week and another one like it, you wouldn't buy it if you only had 20. Investors act in a very human way. During bull markets, they get excited and look back and say, I made money last year. I'm going to make more money this year. So this time, I'll borrow, or the neighbor says, I wasn't in last year when that neighbor was dumber than I made a lot of money. So I'm going to go in this year. They always look in the rearview mirror. When they see a lot of money being made in the past few years, They plow in and just push and push on prices, but when they look in the rearview mirror, they see no money being made. They just say that this is a bad place to be, so they don't care about the underlying business. This is amazing, but it also means that there is a huge opportunity here. In terms of investing, I've been through roughly half of that time, and I've had that long period of stagnation since I was 48. I mean, between 65 and 82. In 1979, after 17 years, I wrote an article for Forbes. I just said, how can this be? Pension funds put a lot of their new money in stocks in 1970 because they were crazy about stocks. When stocks got much cheaper, they put a record low of 9% of their new money in stocks in 1978. Because they are human, people react in very strange ways. They get excited when other people get excited. They get greedy when other people get greedy. And they get scared when other people are scared. They'll keep doing this and you'll see things about securities markets that you won't believe for a long time. Except if you track down the cost of an incredible organization, truly hostile in the event that you feel you've distinguished it. And by definition, an extraordinary organization is one that will stay perfect for quite some time. For 3 years, you know it won't be a great company, but it will be great. I mean, you really want to go along with something that, if you were going to go on a trip for 20 years, you wouldn't feel bad leaving the money in, with no orders from your broker, no power of attorney, and you just go on them. We could try to buy and sell some of the businesses we own that we think are good, but they're too hard to come by. I mean, in 1972, we discovered See's Candy, where we occasionally get the chance to do something, but they're too difficult to find. In this way, to stay there and trust that you get them in the pains of some frenzy, you realize that you'd kind of take the demeanor of an undertaker you know hanging tight for an influenza plague or something like that. I mean, I don't think that will be a good strategy, you know. If you like the business, like the person who is coming to you, think the price is reasonable, and really know the business, I think the best thing to do is to take it. Don't worry about how it was quoted. It won't be quoted tomorrow, next week, or next month. If people knew that stocks were quoted about once a year, I believe their investments would be more intelligent. However, this is not going to happen. Over time, the nation will do very well, but you will see huge waves. If you are able to remain objective throughout that, if you're able to separate yourself temperamentally from the crowd, you will become very wealthy and won't need to be very bright. I mean, and I'm sure you are, but you want to know that it doesn't require intelligence. It just requires temperament. And it requires the capacity to observe something. When I started out in 1950, I would look through things and find businesses that were perfectly decent at 2 times earnings. When interest rates were 2.5%, people wanted jobs at those companies, and everyone knew they would be around. They wouldn't buy them at 2 times earnings. You're aware that I started selling securities at the age of 21, and the Kansas City life insurance company I went to was a fairly well-known Omaha company. The policies they sold you if you bought life insurance from them assumed 2% interest. The price of Kansas City livestock was less than 3 times earnings, so if you bought it, you would get 35%. I went to the local agent, convinced I could sell him a few shares of stock, and there was no doubt about the company's viability. I mean, the man would comprehend him because he has devoted his entire life to this business. I went to the local agent, whose name was Moose, and we've been working with them for 20 years. I told Mr. Moose that you're selling these policies with 2%, that you may even have a few members of your own family, and that you can invest in this company whose paycheck you rely on every month, as well as the future beneficiaries of these life insurance policies, and whom you're selling them to with 2% investment and 35% return. You suddenly realize that stocks aren't doing well, but I couldn't tell you. Despite the fact that I was a lousy salesperson, which goes saying, it still blew me away to the point where I sometimes wondered if I was crazy. The fact of the matter is that you can save a lot of money by avoiding these common investment mistakes. If you make a mistake, you could lose 20%, 50%, or even 100% of your investments. It may take tens of years or years to recover from this. Because making these mistakes can cost us a lot of money, and it always helps when we can learn from the greatest investor of all time, it is essential that we do not simply follow the craziness of crowds, that we do not simply wait for a crash, that we do not give in to fear and greed, and that we dance in and out of stocks. Thank you from Cash Street, where cash is always king.